Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Botanical Colors Feedback Friday. Today is episode 9. Can you believe it? We've done 9 of these. Episode 9 of our show, where we speak with dyers, artists, scientists, and scholars about our favorite topic, natural dyeing. And you get to ask lots of questions. Look to us for everything natural dyes. If you guys could just see the teleprompter that I rigged up because I have a lot of intro to do, I'll show you a picture of it after on our Instagram. So I'm Kathy Hattori, president of Botanical Colors, and along with Amy Dufault, who is our director of sustainability and social media, we are presenting our Feedback Friday, and our company provides natural dyes to artisans and commercial accounts, and we also have a custom natural dye studio based in Seattle, Washington. I'd like to introduce you to our speaker panel this morning. Today, we are really honored to help launch a wonderful new Indigo Shade Map that was created by artist Rosa Chang from the Maryland Institute College of Art, also known as MICA. And it was part of a class that is led by Valeska Popolo. And Valeska is an artist, educator, and kind of a cultural activist. And she has a course currently called Natural Dye as Intercultural Connector. And this is a fascinating exploration into natural dyes because it's not just practice, it's really diving deep into where do the dyes sit, both historically, socially, and culturally among us now. And so in doing that, she's attracted this incredible number of students, artists, and community activists who are participating. So it's a really fascinating take on looking at natural dyes. Let's see, where's my teleprompter? There it is. So Rosa, who is going to be basically narrating and showing us the Indigo Shade Map, is a Korean female interdisciplinary artist. I had to say interdisciplinary about 3,000 times this morning because I just kept stumbling over it. And Rosa focuses on natural dyes and indigo and its culture as a form of art practice and visual storytelling content. And joining Rosa on this panel is Jennifer Nguyen. Jennifer is a fiber artist interested in natural dyes and traditional methods, and they use their work as a tool to understand their Vietnamese heritage, family, and Asian culture through the use of both research and practice. Our third panelist is Eva Sayi. Eva is a curator in Baltimore and a recent MFA curatorial practice graduate from MICA. Eva's work includes What to Make of Earth and Dust, which was a pop-up workshop and performance series that was highlighting brujeria, which is the Spanish word for kind of witchcraft. And it was set among young Latinx and Afro-Latinx educators, activists, activists, and practitioners. And our last participant is Ayobami Adeyemo. And Ayobami is a multidisciplinary artist whose interest lies in studying textiles and dye methods around the world. So this is going to be an amazing presentation, you guys. It's going to be incredible. But before we start, just a couple of things about housekeeping. First, this is not even housekeeping, this is thank you. I just want to send out a huge thank you to everybody who's been with us for these Feedback Fridays, as well as has been supporting us and emailing and posting and sharing their work. You just don't know how much it means to us in this time of great uncertainty. And, you know, everyone is, I know many parts of the country are starting to open up, but where I am at, we are still not open fully, so we're still at home. So it really helps the day pass just to kind of see what everybody's doing and to really feel connected. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Amy is going to be our moderator. And basically what you'll do is when chat opens, and we're going to open chat at the end of the presentation so that we're not interrupting the artists and the speakers, but at the end we're going to open it up. She's going to take the questions first come, first serve, and kind of just farm them out to Eva, Jennifer, Valeska, Ayo, and Rosa. So, you know, feel free to just, when you do your chat, say Rosa, and so that Amy knows who to address the question to. And if it's a generic question or a general question that you feel anybody could answer, you don't need to specify a name, but it would really help Amy just kind of keep track of who to ask. Also, as I mentioned before, everyone's muted for the presentation. But then at the end, we'll open it up so everyone can say hi, which is, to me, is the favorite part of the, because I don't see all of you. I'm on speaker view, so I'm seeing one big speaker and then lots of little tiny tiles. I don't see everybody, so it's really a treat. The call's being recorded, so we'll have that ready for you at the end of the day today. And any references or questions that need references, we'll also have links for you there. So that's our housekeeping. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it to Valeska, who's going to give us a brief intro, and then Rosa is going to take it away with this beautiful map. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. This is Valeska Popolo from Baltimore, Maryland. I teach in the fiber department at the Maryland Institute College of Art, and it's been just an extraordinary pleasure to work with Rosa, the folks on the call today, and also a number of other artists in Baltimore, including Kibia Janku and Kenya Miles on this project, and to be supported by Piper Shepard, our chair in the fiber department, because this has been a complex but beautiful multi-semester work. So I wanted to start just by providing a little bit of an overview, and I'm so glad to be able to participate in the call today. Thank you, Amy and Kathy, for all of your work with making these Feedback Fridays happen. So a few years ago, we here in the fiber department were approached by the Maryland State Arts Council and through the Department of Commerce here in Maryland to participate in a project called the Baltimore Natural Dye Initiative. And the project really tries to bring together a lot of different city and state agencies to explore the cultural and economic impacts of growing, processing, and working with natural dyes in our Baltimore and Maryland region. And I have to say that the project really owes its origin to Maryland's First Lady, Yumi Hogan, and to Rosa Chang, who were really inspired by the work of the Naju Natural Dyeing Culture Center, which you can see here on the left in the presentation. Yumi is a native of that province in South Korea, and both of them were sort of imagining the possibilities of growing indigo here in our state of Maryland. There are a lot of similarities in terms of the climate. And the Naju Center staff have been very generous. They provided dye materials and knowledge about the farming of indigo as we got the project started. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, partly because this project really has been about this idea of intercultural connection through indigo. On the right-hand side, you can see that's the garden that Rosa has been working on with some of our students and also with Kenya Miles, growing indigo here in Baltimore. So thanks, Rosa. Yeah, the next slide. So as part of the Natural Dye Initiative, MICA's fiber department has hosted courses and collaborated with local artists and designers here in Baltimore to expand and deepen our own learning related to natural dyes. And since this wonderful natural dye community is on the call today, we all know that it's a very humbling practice and that the knowledge is deep, the well is deep, as we have been saying here. So for the last 3 semesters, we've offered a class in the fiber department at MICA called Natural Dye as Intercultural Connector. And this class has brought together an incredibly diverse group of faculty, undergrad and graduate students, and a number of community partners and collaborators to learn about natural dyes together. So it's been a very unusual classroom because it hasn't just been students. It has also been a lot of people from outside of the institution coming to be together to learn together. And that's been very enriching for our students and for me. So together, We have participated in the growing and the harvesting and the processing of dye plants, again, really supported by Rosa Chang and Kenya Miles in that work. And because of that, we've had this very direct capacity to experiment with dyes in the studio, including the really impactful practice of tending to a communal indigo vat together. And that's been a really important center point for our class, is taking care of that indigo vat together. So as a community, we've made work together. We've learned about the cultural traditions and practices that accompany these dyes. We've hosted a number of visiting artists, including Catherine Ellis and Ghazali Adeyemo and Kathy Hattori via Skype. In our classroom, we've talked to gardeners and farmers around the country, like Donna Brown out in Colorado, and Roland Ricketts. And we've had workshops for community members, and also deepened our own understanding of all of the complex and often really painful histories that accompany these dyes. And so our practice as a community has really been how to really learn about those histories, but also practice care with each other because of the way that those histories manifest in our present life together, and be able to celebrate their resurgence, the resurgence of natural dyes in our communities. So that's an overview. Amy Dufault and Kathy will share a link to our class website and our project website in the resources after this call, so you can see more about it. We hope to have a couple of other Feedback Fridays about some of the other projects affiliated with this class. But for now, I'm super excited to pass this presentation on to my very esteemed colleague, friend, our artist in residence for the project, Rosa Chang, who will speak more about her project, the Indigo Shade Map, that was supported in part by students in this class and by this project. So take it away, Rosa.
Rosa, you're on mute.
This is the beauty of the live streaming, I guess. Hi, my name is Rosa Chang. Before I jump into the Indigo Shade Map, I would like to talk a little bit of my background and how I fell in love with indigo. I will show you the screen slide again. Okay, it's called the visual indigo as a visual storytelling, a sustainable balance between the human and the natural world through the visual art storytelling. So I'm originally from South Korea, South Korea, and a first generation immigrant in the U.S. I work as an artist, art administrator, illustrator, often write short stories, and also, most importantly, grow indigo and other dye plants with two amazing artists and farmer friends, Kenya and Son, in Baltimore, as an artist resident under the fiber department at MICA. And this is usually what I do the daytime. I mean, not the daytime, like usually after work. So I also drew a lot of indigo plants and also observe them a lot. So here are some images of me working with indigo when I lived in Brooklyn, New York, before I moved back to Baltimore, where I consider as my second hometown. The spontaneous meeting with a guy from Japan who had a very dark blue hands, including nails, and my friend Danny's birthday party led me to work for the indigo dye and also falling in love with indigo. That was a very spontaneous moment. And also it changed my entire career, which is amazing. So, so here are some images of what I've done with indigos. Usually, like, basically I like even dye my friend's hair, and like I was really proud of my hands being blue. That time I started learning how to mix in Tsukumo indigo vat and the rest of the dye process, also helping workshop, making katazume and everything I could do as possible. I learned under the Kenta at the time. He was the co-founder of the Vice of Brooklyn studio in Brooklyn. Okay, yeah, and that was my brief story about myself. And then now I'll jump into the origin of the Indigo Shade Map. So I will talk about the process. So you will see that the indigo shade up here, and also 3 different indigo plants, right? The left called the Polygonum tinctorium, Persicaria tinctoria, known as Japanese indigo. And the middle one is called the Indigofera tinctoria, known as African indigo, tropical indigo. And also the wood, called the European indigo. So my map is an infographic interactive map that's starting from those 3 major indigo plants in the world. So the year when I worked at the Indigo Studio, I was also attending a last year of finishing my Master of Fine Art degree at the School of Visual Art, the program called the Visual Narrative program. There was a class called the Mapping the Mat, which was in collaboration with the Mat Media Lab at the Metropolitan Museum, and also the class run by the professor Tim Sesla. We were collecting data from various galleries and permanent collection from the museum and creating an interactive visual map. Since all my energy and focus was about indigo, I started researching art and relics specifically related to the indigo from the permanent collection. And I was able to collect over 200 artifacts and art and started to draw illustration series. And those are the illustration I draw, the part of that. And I found a very interesting intersectional point that from any artifacts, artwork related to indigo from Asia has a lot of fiber arts, but also lots of Buddhism-based manuscript and also mulberry paper dyed with indigo. So that was one of the illustration I did. And as well as Africa, a lot of fiber arts I found, but also there are a lot of wooden sculpture figures, 3 of these as an example, or all from different part of Africa, and also dyed with indigo. And also I noticed that indigo was being found from European collection that mostly being used, the pigment being used for this kind of like a painting. And this is a wooden block from India. And this is katazume, like a noren from the Japanese collection. So here is an example of that what made me really exciting about this research. That the indigo pigment blew my mind because this is a dye that is being shared and practiced by all over the world. How people from different regions and cultures still use the same blue pigment for their own life. And also their own cultures. And there's 2 images. So the one on the top, this is called the illustrated manuscript of the Lotus Sutra made from 1340. And originally from Korea, it's nowadays Korea. And that's a gold and silver on indigo dyed mulberry paper. And then you see another image on the bottom. It's called Tunisia. And a folio from the blue corn, second half 9th, mid-10th century one. And also the same material, silver and gold, and like indigo dyed paper and parchment being used. So you see that those 2 manuscripts are totally from different location, but also see a lot of similarities. And that was for me very interesting point, and I really wanted to map out those images as a map, that how the world map will be look like indigo. So this is the map image, a world map image that coded by the 3 different plants again. So I chose a light sky blue color for the wood, because of the pigment percentage of the plants. And the Polygonum tinctorium, I generate the color code as a regular, like a medium blue color. And the Indigofera, the African indigo, contains the darkest, the richest pigment. So I add it as a dark color. That you will see the world map, how the area has been divided. And also I color coded the floor map of the mat, the museum, that you will see that where the wood plants will be part, that you see that this color, light color code is in from the, I found a lot of artwork from the indigo related artwork from the Europe, from the medieval art sections, and the Persica Tinctoria one, see that those two different collections representing art, Asian art collection from Arab, Turkey, and also Asian art, but especially a lot of art from Japan related to indigo was being found. And same as this dark blue shade from the Egypt section, as well as the Oceania and Africa section. And also I wanted to make something physical map, so I dyed the indigo scarf and also used the technique called the basen, that like a bleaching technique for the images. So that was used. So me joining as an artist in residence with a student group, that was such an the evolving moment for me to developing the map even like a bigger, by adding more contents and also more focusing on like a culture and different like location and histories, rather than from just art collection from the one particular museum. So I'll read that evolution of the indigo map, then define the mission and agenda real quick. So Indigo Shade Map is an interactive infographic map originally created by artist and grower Rosa Chang in 2017. Then redeveloped in the spring of 2020. This initiative started as a way to map the use of 3 different kinds of indigo grown around the world: Indigo tinctoria, Polygonum tinctorium, and wood. Each indigo plant is marked with a corresponding shade of blue on the map. Indigo dye is an ancient dye found in a textile tradition practiced by various cultures around the world. The main purpose of the Indigo Shade Map is to show how one particular natural dye is still widely and continuously practiced today. Each indigo plant visually looks very different and grows in diverse climates and regions. Although these plants contain blue pigments in their leaves, each shade produced is different. These powerful plants weave together many lives and peoples in complex textile history to better connect one another. So as I mentioned from the last slide, you will see that there are 4 different like a mark that, as I color coded from the previous indigo map. So the darkest blue refer to Indigo tinctoria, and then the mid shade blue Polygonum tinctorium. Again, the light blue refer to Isatis tinctoria, which is wood. And also from the through the research, we also found a lot of different indigo plants not being part of those 3 big groups. So I added called a special indigo and also color coded as a green. So this is the snapshot of the world map that you will be able to find through the indigoshade.org website. And you see that a lot of like marks, different colors and different regions. So this is still like we are still developing the map, and this, I'm hoping to get more this kind of like marks. So this is the brief website about our project, and has the Indigo Shade Map section, and also you will be able to see our students. And also I added a section called the resource that you'll be able to see like dyer, growers, sellers, and also the resource part. And so my main goal is connecting people through this map. So yeah, we're still on developing the part. So now I'll introduce Ayo. I will let Ayo talk about one of the research what he did. Hey Ayo, are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So I will click this image for you, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
So I guess to briefly describe my research, it was kind of just focusing on finding more sources of indigo outside of like the main strains of indigo that we just talked about, like Indigo Fera, Tinctoria, and stuff like that. So mostly I'll probably just talk about like the Indigo Fera family. Tinctoria is probably the most widespread source of indigo. It was native to India, but like traded throughout the trade routes in Asia and Africa. So it eventually traveled all around the world. Eventually when the ships came to trade. But there are lesser known strains such as Indigo Fera erecta, which is native to West Africa. It isn't really cultivated. It's more so harvested in the wild. And then there's Indigo Fera sufruticosa, which is native to Mesoamerica and was used by the Aztecs in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. This strain was eventually like exported by the Portuguese and grown with enslaved labor on Cape Verde. As for special strains of indigo, I think the main one I kind of focused on was Lantrocarpus cyanesis. I would probably say that's the main indigo producing plant for West Africa because it ranges from Nigeria to about Guinea. So there's many different names for this indigo, but it has a really, really high indican content. So that's probably the main indigo strain I focused on. There's also Assam indigo, which is native to Southeast Asia. But basically, most of my research just kind of focused on finding special indigo strains. There's a lot more work that I have to do, a lot more plants that I have to like register onto the map, particularly the Wrightia family also. So my work isn't ever probably going to be done. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Ayo, do you want to talk a little bit about this indigo ball?
Oh, this indigo ball?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Larchocarpus cyanesis, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the process, how to make the ball?
Yeah.
Like,
it's basically kind of made in mortar and pestle. Mm-hmm. It's harvested and then just kind of like pounded into like that. It's kind of just like made out of the pulp that you like use in a mortar pestle. I imagine it's not a very easy process. I kind of want to experience that process someday though.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. Jennifer, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, I will click this one for you.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. My name is Jennifer Nean, and I'm an artist who grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland. And I guess like to give a brief background, I am a first generation American. My parents both came from Vietnam. So, you know, inherently I grew up very disconnected from my culture. And I think a lot of that, I think because of that, a lot of my work is motivated by my desire to learn about my heritage. And like, I kind of tackle that, like focusing on pre-industrial methods and traditions of like art making. So, and that manifests in like in many different ways and multiple series. But this time around, I was learning a lot about the Hmong people, their textile practices, and specifically their use of indigo and hemp in their textiles. And to put it like briefly, some of my research, the Hmong people are a minority group who reside in like the mountainous areas of Southeast Asia, typically like southern China, northern Vietnam, and Laos, and also Thailand. And I was just learning a lot about their, I guess like the culture of their textile and how tied it is to gender and religion. But on the map, you can see there's some links to some of my research that I did, as well as like a video like kind of covering their indigo practice. Some of the work that you see on the page is work that I made kind of inspired by these, by my research. And I was inspired by their weaving practices. So I constructed a backstrap loom and created 2 weavings. I hope to make more of them, but it was really enjoyable. I'm really inspired by like traditional like silhouettes. So I also made a traditional Vietnamese dress, which is called the Ao Dai, and it's very recognizable. I was using a soy lime resist method that I grabbed from the Catherine Ellis and Joy Butcher book, the Natural Dye book. And yeah, it was just like kind of a really enjoyable process for me. And I just find it really, I find it pretty important to look back at like my roots in that way. And I also learned a lot about like managing an indigo vat. I think throughout this time, it taught me a lot about care and like moderation, which I like reflect on a lot as like I continue this process. And it's just gonna keep going for me. So yeah, that wraps it up for me. So I'm gonna pass this to Ava.
I'll unmute myself. All right. I'm Eva. I just graduated from MICA as a graduate student. I've primarily worked as a curator, less so than an artist. I started the workshop and performance series called What to Make of Earth and Dust that you see on the right side. And it kind of highlighted the resurgence of brujeria and other practices derived from indigenous belief systems. So I brought together Latinx and Afro-Latinx practitioners, educators, and artists to share workshops based on ancestral knowledge, plant medicine, healing rituals, and even some natural dye processes. This Indigo Map project kind of became a continuation of my interests in being able to research and learn about practices from hundreds of years ago that were very much tied to the fabric of many native cultures, like indigo. So the purpose of my thesis was to kind of learn through tangible hands-on experiences that couldn't really be taught in like textbooks or traditional classroom settings. So we all kind of joined Rosa's research like through this MICA class, and I really appreciated from the beginning the way that we were taught about indigo, and it helped me a lot in like my curatorial practice. We not only learned about the dyeing process, but everything growing, harvesting, everything like Valeska had mentioned. One of the first few days, we actually went to the site and did a land acknowledgement to the native people of Baltimore. And to me, that felt like the first time in an institutional setting that real care went into developing not only a relationship with the plant itself, but also trying to be conscious of our practice. Rosa's very passionate. She would talk to the vats. We as a community would say goodbye to them. They were like their own person. It felt like Indigo was kind of bringing together a group of people that wasn't traditional, at least from my experience at MICA. It had like undergraduates, graduate students, artists outside of Baltimore and in Baltimore. And we learned a lot through just like each other's experiences, sharing recipes. I mean, we like smelled, touched, like some people even tasted the plant itself. Rosa shared some seeds, like I'm growing my own from harvesting last year. They're still little babies, but I hope they'll grow. But in terms of my research, which I kind of put on the left, it was a little more sporadic. So I just started thinking about areas that were very personal to me and see if they connected through indigo, which they did. And those were Mexico, the Caribbean, and Florida. So I'm half Mexican. My whole family is Mexican. We can be traced back to like the Otomi people. But what I found was that Oaxaca actually has a very long history, specifically with the Zapotec people. And right now they're trying to revive ancient techniques to kind of continue to preserve the practices, and are working with the Oaxaca Textile Museum, which is a great resource for that. And they host workshops with people from around the world to learn that specific technique. And you can find out more information on the map itself. I also immigrated from the Caribbean, specifically Guadeloupe. And so I was like, maybe there's like a connection to indigo there. It was huge in sugar production at one point, but I did find out that before that, in like the 1630s, indigo was actually one of the major exports for the French. And the government is now trying to excavate the site and preserve it, kind of to like enlighten what happened there. And which you can see on the very top circle, there's a vat of like the indigo itself that they discovered not too long ago. And I don't know, going in the Caribbean, I also like discovered that the British Virgin Islands, which I didn't list there, also had a plantation, but the government there really has no interest in like trying to preserve the history. It's now kind of like a multi-million-dollar home like neighborhood, and it's actually called Indigo Plantation, but they have no like evidence, or they don't really allow research of like the plantation itself, which I found to be bizarre. And then lastly, it is Ponte Verde Beach, Florida. So I actually lived, I don't know if you can see, like in Gainesville, and that's where I went for my undergrad. So an hour away from that is one of the largest indigo plantations in Florida from the first governor of Florida. And they were at one point producing more than like the plantations in Georgia and North Carolina. And it's now a national park. So it's interesting kind of like to see the erasure of that history. You can see a picture of the national park there. So there are fragments of indigo all over the world, some with like terrible history, some with more hopeful ones like that of Oaxaca. So I was really excited about this project because even if the research was a little more sporadic in my case, it kind of like genuinely built a curiosity for me. So I'm excited to see where it goes. And that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Eva. So before moving to the Q&A, I wanted to share a little bit about the future of our Indigo Shade Map, that what we are driven to, that we all, Eva, me, Ayu, and Jennifer, and our other students want to keep researching more region and then fill up with our research on the map. And then hopefully we can growing as an educative open source database so that people can enjoy our research and also can join with us. And then hopefully it can be like a nomadic research lab, for artistic people, and also teaching workshop and like collaborating natural dye workshop with other people, as well as like hopefully making a real job for our student, also myself too. So, and also publishing a periodical magazine and plants environment-based publication, and also just having fun with the researching. So we're moving to the Q&A session.
Thanks, Rosa.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Rosa, if you want to go ahead and stop sharing the screen.
Yeah,
then,
sure.
Thank you. It looks like
got some questions coming
questions are coming through. So Amy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Well, let's see. I guess we'll just start at the top. Christopher is asking, how can I participate? Asking anyone that question, I guess, in your research. And, or maybe, I know you're doing you're opening up the map too to have people add to it or give you information to add to it.
Yeah, for now, we could accept the research information through our email that, yeah, you can simply email to us that we can add it info on the map for you, as well as if you want to be listed on the grower and farmer list, that I'll be happy to help on that too.
Kate Ellis is asking, what timeline does your Indigo Shade Map cover?
I see this map as like probably next 30 years. I don't know how long I could go, but yeah.
But for like the history itself, Rosa, what when the kind of the mapping that you started, what was the time period?
Oh, time period, that was because I was started with based on the permanent collection at the Met. So the time period starting from the really way back, but also the Silk Road is also the part of the process too.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a question specifically for you. Rosa, how do you know which areas use which indigo plant? Do you do chemical testing? Is it based strictly on historical research?
It is also based on the historical research as well as like almost more like a general sense that like what area, like a climate and like a region, and then like a tradition. So this map is like, it's more like I wanted to make more like a visual storytelling map that creating a like a online space for people to discuss and talk, and even like yeah, to talk more, that rather than like very strictly focusing on research base. So it's like a research base, but also yeah, it's more like just fun map.
Anybody can answer this one. Nancy is asking, what defines indigo? Is it the color or is it the plant? Maybe it's both. Somebody wants to answer.
Does anyone want to answer it? To me, it's like both plants and also pigment, but I think I would say more like pigment focused, because we can find blue pigment from many different plants. So as I map it out, like wood and like indigo tinctoria, polygon tinctoria, they're totally different species, but still contain the same blue pigment. So yes.
Kate Ellis, is Stony Creek on your map in Tennessee?
Oh, so I would love to add a Stony Creek on my map. It's not yet because we were more like a focusing on origin of the area, but now we are in the process of adding more like local farms on the map as well.
Anita is asking, what indigo plant are you growing in Baltimore? Or maybe you're growing a couple plants.
So at the farm, we were growing Polygonum tinctorium, Japanese indigo, and wood. But mainly we are focusing on Japanese indigo at this time because of the climate and soil similarity between East Asia and Baltimore, Maryland. And we tried to grow the tropical indigo last year as well, but the weather didn't work well. And also I think the leaves really tasty for deers. So yeah, it became like a salad bar for them, so they ate them all. So well, we are really hoping to regrow again. Yeah,
I'm trying to grow some indigo right now too, and I have 3 different types of indigo at the end of this table right now, and some are not faring very well at all. Eva, question for you. Unmute yourself. Do you know of any research done on slaves that grew indigo in America? Any techniques or practices?
Yes, that's all like in the research that I put in the map. So obviously it's like a huge part of that. As for like the 5-minute speaking time, I didn't want to like delve too much into it. But yeah, a lot of that research is definitely being, is like on the map that you can like read about and see. And we will have like the documents showing that as well on the research section of the website.
Yeah, I know you guys are adding to it. And I also have lots of resources that Valeska and Rosa have given me to hand out in an email later to everyone. Rosa, I guess this might be a question for you, but do you have any plans for doing the same kind of research, but with madder?
Oh, yeah, I would love to. I'm like, so like not only indigo entire goal, eventually my final goal would be more like a rainbow map, that meaning that I really would love to research other shades, other plants that make different color as well. I love madder so much. Also recently I'm really into the safflower too. Yes, and also cotton.
Rebecca says, thank you all so much for sharing. Wondering how conversations about slavery and exploitation were managed within the group. Are there any techniques or moments for community care that were effective or helpful in supporting transparency and dialogue?
I would love Valeska to speak about that if you can, because I think she did a really excellent job of maneuvering all those difficult conversations in a class where people were like uncomfortable or very comfortable speaking about it. So if Valeska could.
Sure, thanks, Eva. Thanks for that question too. And I think that has been such an important dimension for us as a community, that work over the course of the last 2 years, really, for the team, Rosa, Kibidia Janku, Kenny Miles, Piper Shepard and I, but for the class for 3 semesters, some students were with us from the very beginning of that 3-semester experience. Some students joined us only this past spring. And so what we really had to think about was what were some ways that we could ground our community in practices around dialogue and practices around self-education. I also want to really mention Omolara Williams McAllister, who was a graduate student who worked with us last year quite a lot in helping me develop some facilitation skills around that. One thing that we started, just to answer very concretely, one thing that we started each class with was a circle. It was a way for us to check in with each other and to prioritize the fact that we were all learning from each other, that it was, I never saw myself as a teacher in that space. We also very thoughtfully from the very beginning recognized the importance of having other teachers in the room, other facilitators in the room who had different racial and ethnic identities than me. And that's the teaching team I keep referring to, Rosa, Kibibia Janku, and Kenya Miles. And then we also crafted community agreements that come from, for me, from my work in outside of MICA and doing some community-based work. So we had community agreements about what we were willing to commit to if we went off course, if someone felt like they were harmed in the conversation. And we provided a lot of resources for people to educate themselves. What was really challenging, but also really beautiful about our classroom is that we had people with extensive experience, not only navigating conversations around race, but also who were training people, other people who do that sort of professionally. And then we had people who were very new to that conversation. And so we consistently shared resources with our students and with each other about how to deepen that learning for ourselves. We read a number of books together, and as the facilitator, I spent a lot of time sort of reflecting on how to engage the group in conversation around that material. One of the books that we read, for example, last fall that I felt like was very impactful is the Red, White, and Black Make Blue, the accounts of indigo production in South Carolina during the colonial era and the pre-colonial era. And I'm hoping again that we have a Feedback Friday in a few weeks or in a couple of months that focuses more specifically on those histories that I hope we can bring one of our resident artists, Kabibia Janku, to speak to more specifically. But the resources that Amy will be sharing will include some of those tools that we found useful in our classroom.
Yeah, the resource list that's going to be in that email, and it will also be on the website, and the blog post is really great. I mean, there's lots of books, but then there's other organizations that I'm including in there too that you offered up for engaging people and deeper conversations. Thanks, Valeska. So I think let me see here. You guys have so many questions. Okay, I have quite a bit of indigo growing in my dye garden. I'd like to make it to store. Is the indigo ball in Ayobami's slide difficult to make? I think, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah.
That is similar as making Sukumo is almost like impossible without being trained for many years. I mean, it's a different process, but certainly like requires a lot of like tradition, but as well as like, I think those, process requires, a lot of skills and experience.
Yeah, I think we all realize like the more you use indigo and practice with indigo, you see like it's fairly easy to get blue to hit some cloth and get color, but to really become a master and really understand indigo and all the history behind it, but also how to use it, like you're saying, to make that ball. It's like takes a lot of practice. Let's see, are you looking particularly at indigo plant practices? How much have you looked at or incorporated the cultural uses and meanings of indigo? I'm assuming that's as part of the map.
Wow. Does anyone want to answer for that? I think I talk too much. I think look at that. Yeah, I think that one actually relates to Jennifer too. Jennifer, do you want to talk a little bit of more your research and your art practice with indigo, based on the Hmong traditions?
I guess I have a little bit. My research is definitely like far from done. But I was just looking at, I guess, how indigo connects like not only the Hmong people but multiple like minority groups. It's very connected throughout these ethnic groups, and I was also focusing a lot on their actual like planting practices. I learned a lot about their techniques, and they use this technique called slash and burn, where they clear like a field out and grow their crops. And like I almost don't like using that term because later I learned that it's kind of a term that to give a negative connotation to this practice, to make it seem like it's not sustainable or that it's like harming the environment, when in like reality it's kind of that's more responsible like by larger corporations. So definitely that's like a dimension to my research that was really important. And I guess like how beyond the textile practice, how like the Hmong people have been affected like throughout history, which like I find is like really important throughout like the Vietnam War and beyond, because they're definitely still affected by it today. And yeah.
I think it's hard to like research cultural processes or practices because we're not like there, and just like seeing what we learned in the class, like unless you were there, you really couldn't like learn otherwise. So like doing historical research in terms of like the culture and process is a little difficult if you're not like going there. Like what I learned from Oaxaca was because a friend of mine like went there and like brought back like pamphlets and videos from artists. So yeah.
Yeah. And also I want to piggyback on that actually that was part of the reason I also started making this map, because I show you the example of the manuscript from the Korea that being displayed at the Met. Is that I mean I'm from Korea, but I even didn't like know that there's indigo exists in Korea. But then the first time I learned about indigo was through the Japanese indigo master. That geographical similarity, I thought that maybe Korea will be having indigo too, and then realized that I found the artwork with the indigo related work from the Korea. That also it opens up my mind to navigate more about finding my identity and stuff like that. I mean I was born and raised in Korea, but still I moved to the state in kind of fairly early age, so that was also the part of thing. And also that also moved me like desire of moving different place to learn about more, that ended up applying for the Fulbright for the National Geographic program. So yeah, that's all I think relate to that.
Thanks, Rosa. Again, in the email later, we're going to have, I've already put it together, and Rosa's email is in there. So if you want to ask her questions or you have suggestions for people to add to the map, you can do that there too. So, and also there's 2 Instagram handles on there too, so you can follow her and see all the great work that she's doing.
By the way, can I also piggyback one more thing about the answer for the tradition and then cultural aspect, that I actually Valeska suggests me to explain a little bit about the indigo production, and I think it's really valuable too. That one thing is also related to Japanese indigo practice, and also like other part of the Asian indigo practice, that even if the interesting thing about this mapping and also research is that even though we are sharing the same plants, But then there are so many different type of pigment extraction process. As an example, in like Tokushima, Japan, they're really focusing on Tsukumo method, that like drying the leaves and then like composting them, and then like they making the like Tsukumo that it looked like a wood bark. But then in Korea and other like Japan, even Vietnam and other places, they also do water extraction method. That picture was being shared through Valeska from the slideshow, that we harvest indigo plants and then like soak it to the water during the hot summer day, and then leave it for a couple of days, and then you will notice that their blue, like a green blue water comes out, and then we aerate the water. So there's a lot of different methods. I mean, same as Ayubami shared the image of the indigo ball with the tropical indigo, which is also a completely different method. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I know there's still a ton of questions. So I think Amy's going to go ahead and put those together. And
I refuse.
it might be possible for us to have the team answer those, and then we could just post those. We did that last week because there were so many add-on questions afterwards. So if it's not too much of an effort or an imposition, we'd love to have that additional input. And I just want to thank you guys. This was amazing. This is such a beautiful project. I love the way that it's pulling in this enormous history. You're right, it is so deep. It's deep, it's wide, it's inclusive. It's both painful and joyous. It's a really lovely, lovely way to look at a color, and looking at other colors that way just kind of opens your eyes to like exactly what's out there and what it means and what its significance was around the world and within a culture. So thank you very, very much. This was amazing. So before we open it up for everybody to say hi to each other, I just want to talk a little bit about next week. We're going to have Cara Marie Piazza. I don't know if you folks know her. She's extremely shy. She's like this raucous, crazy New York woman artist, and her specialty is looking at both food waste and flower waste. So she works with both food service, restaurants, and florists to take these type of beautiful dye materials that come from other processes and using them in her own artwork. So she's going to be talking about some projects she's worked on in Brooklyn using both flower and food waste. She's also going to be teaching a class on using both raw dye materials and waste on June 6th. So we're co-sponsoring that. We'll have a link for sign up later on today and announce it, and you are welcome to join her. She's a really, really lovely teacher, super high energy, no holds barred, kind of will wake you up and open your eyes to new ideas for natural dyeing. So check us out next week, and of course, in the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. It's Memorial Day. I was just told that this morning. And we'll see you next week. Amy's going to go ahead and unmute everybody so you can say hello, and goodbye. And again, Team MICA and Indigo Shade Map, Rosa, Eva, Valeska, Ayo, and Jennifer, thank you so much. It was really, really lovely. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Baltimore friends. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Kim.
Hi.
Hi, Kenya.
Amazing
Hi,
work.
Piper.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Yvonne.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Incredible program.
Thank you, Kathy and Amy, for hosting us.
Amy. Saw Deb too. Hi, Deb. Hi,
Thank you.
Sherry.
Congratulations.
Valeska.
Bye.
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
Bye.
Indigo.
Bye.
Oh, hi.
Everybody.
Hi, guys.
So much.
Everybody.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Paola.
Guys are awesome.
Bye.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Edward.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. Hi,
Thank
Deb.
you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Oh, Sarah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's this is my roommates there.
it's the Rosa fan club.
All right. Okay, guys, I am going to stop recording.
Oh, Sue.
Okay.
Hi,
Bye,
Carol.
Kathy.
Okay, bye, guys.